Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a question I get asked all the time. American English versus British English. Is one of them the right one? Let's get into it. This is something that trips up so many language learners. You hear these two major versions of English, and you feel like you have to pick a side, right? So, what's the deal? Is there actually one correct English? So, on one hand, you've got the argument for British English. The thinking goes, well, the language started in Britain, so that must be the original, the pure, the correct version. It kind of makes sense on the surface, doesn't it? But then you've got the other side of the coin. Way more people speak American English globally, and it's absolutely everywhere in movies, in music, on the internet. So doesn't that make it the more modern, more relevant, and therefore more correct English for today? Okay, so here's the truth, the big reveal. The whole idea that there is a single, perfect, correct version of English, well, it's a total myth. And today, we're going to bust that myth wide open. So let's jump into our first section, the correct English myth. We're going to dig into why this whole idea of a perfect English just doesn't exist. In fact, it's literally impossible. All right, first things first, let's make sure we're on the same page about what a myth even is. It's not just some old story about dragons. It's a belief that a lot of people hold, a story we tell ourselves, even though it's, well, false. And this correct English idea is a big one. So how should we think about it? Instead of imagining English as some boring, old rock that never changes, I want you to picture it as this massive, flowing river. And this river idea, it's actually perfect. As the English River flowed out from Britain, it traveled all over the world, to America, to India, to Australia, and everywhere it went, it changed. It picked up new words, new rhythms, new styles. I mean, think about it. You'd never point to one part of a river and say, that's the correct part of the river, right? No way. It's all just the same river. Okay, so if these differences aren't about right versus wrong, then what's it all about? Well, as we're about to see, it has way more to do with culture than it does with rules. Let's look at a real-world example of how culture shapes the way we talk. In America, the culture often really values being direct and enthusiastic. So, when an American says your new pen is awesome, they mean it. It's just part of that style. But in Britain, communication can be a lot more understated. Using a huge word like fantastic might actually come across as a bit much, maybe even insincere. It's a cultural style, not a grammar mistake. And then, of course, you've got the classic vocabulary mix-ups. Someone from Britain lives in a flat and goes on holiday. An American lives in an apartment and goes on vacation. Are either of them wrong? Of course not. They're just the right words for that specific place. And this quote right here really hits the nail on the head. When someone says, oh, American English sounds so loud, or British English sounds so stuffy, they think they're talking about the language, but what they're really reacting to, probably without even realizing it, is the culture behind the words. Which, leads us perfectly into our next big idea. English isn't some dusty old book of rules sitting on a shelf. It's a living, breathing thing that's always changing. You want proof? I've got a great one for you. Take the word nice. Today, we all know it means kind or pleasant. But go back a few hundred years, and if someone called you nice, they were basically calling you an idiot. Can you believe that? The meaning did a complete 180. That's not a mistake. That's just evolution in action. So what's causing all this change? Well, pretty much everything. New technology gives us words we couldn't have imagined, like selfie or Wi-Fi. The language spreads and creates cool new local versions. And, yep, young people are always pushing the language forward with new slang. It's so funny, right? Every older generation complains that kids these days are ruining the language, completely forgetting that their parents said the exact same thing about them. Here's another way to think about it. Language change is kind of like the weather. It happens slowly, constantly, and it's totally natural. You don't notice the tiny shifts from one day to the next, but over a few decades, everything's different. That's exactly how language works. All right, let's have a little fun with this, because when you have different versions of a language, you're bound to get some pretty funny misunderstandings. And the best part is, it's not just learners who get mixed up. This stuff happens to native speakers all the time. Okay, so picture this scene. An American tourist is in London. They want to be friendly, give someone a compliment. They see a local and say with a big smile, hey, I really like your pants. So why is the person from London giving them a super weird look?
Well, it's all because of this one little word. In the US, pants means trousers, the things you wear on your legs, a totally normal thing to compliment. But in the UK, pants means underwear. So yeah, our well-meaning American tourist just walked up to a complete stranger and complimented their underwear. Whoops.
And honestly, here's the most important thing to take away from that little story. If people who have spoken English their entire lives can get confused by it, then it is 100% okay for you as a learner to make mistakes. It's part of the game. It happens.
And that brings us to our final, and I think most important point today. It's time to change how we think about this whole thing. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is communication. I want to say this as clearly as I can. If you mix up an American word with a British one, if you have an accent from your first language, your English is not wrong. Not at all.
Think back to that river. Your English, it's part of that amazing living story. Every single person who learns and uses this language adds their own little stream to it, making it richer and more interesting. You're not just memorizing rules, you're taking part in a global conversation.
So, what's the bottom line here? It's this. English doesn't belong to England or America. It belongs to every single person who speaks it. And that, for sure, includes you. So own it, be confident, and remember that your voice is now part of the incredible living story of English.